Good morning. First, let me say it's a tremendous honor to be here this morning to recant my experiences that day, which, based on everything that happened that morning 10 years ago, was a small part of it. But I was in the air. I was coming from Indianapolis to Cleveland, and you hear the infamous recordings on the news of the cockpit break-in on United 93. And it turned out that aircraft, when we went back through the tapes, we heard everything that morning. And that flight was maybe 10,000 feet directly above us on our way into Cleveland when it turned around. And we were told, we heard the cockpit recordings, or the cockpit transmissions firsthand. The infamous terrorist saying they have a bomb on the airplane, we're going back to the airport, stay in your seats. Well, we didn't know what to think of that at first. So we continued along, our frequency changed, we're going into Cleveland, no problem. We hear on our company frequency, aircraft looking for ramp space in Cleveland, which is very odd, because we were the only flight scheduled in that morning in our ramp. Well, New York's airspace was shut down, Boston's was shut down, and not a lot of people remember at that time there was a hurricane off the East Coast, so a lot of us thought that Hurricane Aaron might have drifted in and was causing some backlog. It wasn't so, and a few moments later our worst fears were realized that we heard from company aircraft that a plane had hit the Twin Tower, one of the Twin Towers. And then several minutes later, the second aircraft had hit, and national emergency was declared. And as pilots, we like to give air traffic control, and I know there's a couple of them here, we like to give them a lot of grief every day. But after that day and the work that they did to get us on the ground as fast as they did all over the country, and it's phenomenal effort just to make it work. We were fortunate we were able to make it into Cleveland. We landed at Cleveland. The aircraft directly behind us was the aircraft that they thought was 93, or the flight that the transmission came from. And in the midst of all of this, 93's radar tag was lost, and it continued on, and the rest of Flight 93's story is history. Well, we landed in Cleveland. That flight, which turned out to be Delta 1989, landed right behind us. Turned out to be fine. The crew just had miscommunication issues, and they were okay. But the part that got me was when we pulled into the gate, they had told us about the Pentagon. Now you're wondering what's going on. Now everything's going crazy. So we leave, driving home from the airport, and if any of you have been over to Cleveland Hopkins Airport, where Route 237 and Snow Road is, well, imagine hundreds of people carrying their bags from the airport terminal across the highway to the park and fly to get in their cars and go home. That's when it really hit me that this was something that was unique and was unprecedented. And to top it off, I got married 3 days after that. So I get home, and strangely enough, my future mother-in-law was the first phone call I got as we were pulling into the gate, wanting to know if we were okay, and we were. So after waking my wife up, who had worked midnights at the hospital, to tell her about that, of course we joined in all of you watching the different reviews on the news throughout the next 2 days of everything that had happened. The wedding went off without a hitch, but it was really, really hard to make what should have been the happiest day of our life truly that happy day. But we mustered through it. The patriotism grew throughout the ceremony, which is what happened in the country, which is why this day, September 11th, is a day that needs to be remembered each and every day of our lives, not just once a year. It's a day that saw the very worst in humanity trumped by the best that Americans had to offer, and that was each other on that day. And Dale said earlier, the day started out a beautiful day. Kind of like this, no clouds, another beautiful September morning until nearly 3,000 people lost their lives. Our nation was tested on that day. It continues to be tested as we're reminded of those events of that tragic day every day of our daily lives in one way or another up until now. Now, do those behind the terror attacks win? I don't think so. Because Americans know in their hearts the meaning of good and freedom. The people that pulled this off were nothing more than pure evil. We may not show it every day, but we need to realize that we're the torchbearers of liberty's light. And we need to make every effort possible to keep that light shining brighter than ever before. Now, those people that lost their lives on that day, including the heroes on 93, they didn't know the sacrifices they were going to make that morning. They didn't know when they went to work or went to school or went on vacation that their goodbye hugs and kisses were going to be their last. The people died, those people died as they lived their lives in this country under liberty's light, and that's the way we need to continue to live. We need to remain vigilant as citizens, our leaders steadfast in protecting our freedoms and protecting our people. And we need to let the world know that in the end, it's freedom that wins. It's not fear. No cowardly terrorist acts are ever going to change our core being. And those who are truly brave will never live in fear. There are those that do live in fear, though. There are those that live in fear of freedom, because a free nation is strong. It's stronger than the fear itself. So as we remember those who lost their lives on September 11, 2001, we need to remember how they lived. And remember that we have the duty as Americans to carry that torch. And we need to continue to realize that our freedom may be despised by many, but our God-given freedom is something that's truly yearned for by many more. So in closing, remember those patriots. Remember that day. Remember how we came together as one country against a common threat. And above all, remember the freedom that we live for and for which so many have made the ultimate sacrifice. I thank you for listening this morning, and God bless America.